Good evening again. I'm Revati Krishna, Thai Kerala Charter member, and I would like to introduce the moderator for today, Naveen Philip, for this session's keynote address titled Eastern Story and the Next Unicorn from the Group. Naveen Philip is the CEO of Popular Mega Motors, which is part of the multi-million Popular Kottakaran Group. Naveen holds a degree in mechanical engineering and an MBA from Xavier's Institute of Management, Bhubaneswar. His experience also includes a 4-year stint as marketing head at Godrej Boys Limited. Naveen is also a Thai Kerala Charter member. Over to you, Naveen, for this fantastic exploration of the Eastern story, and the next unicorn from the group.
Thanks, Revati, and welcome to all. Slightly late in the evening, but it's going to be a great session with Nawaz on the spotlight. A person who started his journey when he was 22 in the business, along with his father, and worked with his father for approximately 20 years, building up one of the greatest brands India has known in the food and spices nomenclature. I would probably ask Nawaz why the name Eastern at some point of time, coming from the western coast of India, and why would they name it Eastern, just to give it a contrast. But they put not only a small town like Adimali on the spotlight, but the whole of Kerala. And now he's partially exited the enterprise that he's so lovingly built up, and approximately 3,000 employees, a huge turnover. And so we would like to know from him as to what he's going to plan next. So this is a brief introduction of Nawaz, the man who's supposed to, and this is an inside information, is who knows all his distributors by name, their birthdays, their family's birthdays, and he can call them on the phone at any point of time. So I think a person who's built a distribution channel unsurpassed in the history of India. Over to you, Nawaz, for answering the first question. How does it feel after selling the so-called family jewel?
Yeah. Very good evening to you all. Yes, the art of letting go is something what one need to practice, in the sense it's way back in 1997 when I first attended private equity related seminar in Bombay. I was very clear that our organization was not ready for bringing in a private equity at that point of time. So we had to do a lot of things so that the company becomes an investable company. And it's not easy for, it's too tough for a family-run organization to move from that sort of a scenario to a very professionally operated scenario. So at that point of time, there was a lot of struggle just to say that to bring in qualified, I would say that the big four coming in was a big issue. Hiring people, professionals into the organization on a lateral way was a big issue. All that happened. It was a pain, but then it all happened. I need to thank my dad for, in fact, he went through a lot of stress when I started putting all these things in place. So, that actually brought us to a stage where in 2005, 2006, we were able to bring in a private equity. And that was, I think in Kerala, we were one among the first few companies to bring in private equities. So from there, the journey started. And at that point of time, if somebody comes into an organization, they have to get an exit. So at the time of exit, for a better valuation, for being part of the investor's side, you probably need to be open to very many options. So right from 2007, 2008, we were open to all sort of things that could actually, help us unlock value, not just for us, but also for the investor.
Would you have done this any differently looking back?
I always talk about having fun in what we do. So in my personal journey, I always had this in mind that we need to create value within the organization. Running organization for profits, that over a period of time becomes monotonous. So now we have got into a scenario where we are part of two brands, and the current the post merger value of the organization is at 6,000 crore based on the last year valuation. Obviously, this year EBITDA based valuation should obviously be should take us into that unicorn status. So I think what I've done is right from my point of view, but there are a lot of sentiments attached to any organization. So different people have different feel. Within the family also, people might feel differently. But then, being the leader in the organization, I have to make sure that we take the right call.
So taking a cue from that, and before we get into how you're going to build your next unicorn, most family-based businesses, first generation, then the second generation comes, they come in with a lot of ideas. In the second generation, there are a lot of gaps. You and your brothers, there, your spouse, his spouse, your son, daughter. So, and the entire stakeholders, you had 3,000 people working for you at that point of time. Where all these aligned, how did you go about convincing all of them that this is probably the right step to move forward?
So in the previous two association, in the first association with New Vernon and in the second association with McCormick, people have felt that organization has grown. We were able to bring in a lot of qualitative inputs into the organization. See, it is the point here is, have we created an institution or not? Without the Meeren family, will it run? If it runs without Meeren family intervention, that is where the organization, the perfect organization basically comes in picture. So people have trust in us. We have proved that more people coming in has only contributed positively to the organization for all the stakeholders, be it the workers or the employees or the vendors, the end consumers. Every stakeholder actually benefits out of good people coming into the organization.
Okay. So going on to the next, now we've got a truckload of money, and you're just close to, I'm not disclosing your age. You gave me a clue earlier, but you still have half a century to go probably. So what next? I mean, you have a mattress brand, you have a shirts brand, you had Aqua mineral water, you had schools, you're a big enthusiast of sports. And I remember you talking about basketball and trying to bring an NBA style event into or building up sports in India. So what next for you?
In fact, what mistake which we had done in the past, everyone, most of the talents within the family was all involved in running spices company. We didn't, and to me, I think I made a mistake of not bringing in the right people to run those organizations during the 2008-2010 period. Because from 2010 to 2008, 2010 period, everyone started fully concentrating on the spice powder business. So those companies which had the opportunity of growing pan India missed the bus. So so the current objective which I am carrying is to make sure that each organization should have the right people to run it, take it to the next level, and we as family, we will not get involved in those businesses directly. If at all somebody wants to get involved, they will be involved as a professional in that particular organization. If it is my son or my wife or my brother, whoever is joining that organization will take up a professional assignment rather than just being there as a family member. So to kickstart, what we have done is we have appointed a group executive officer. So the under the group executive officer, we will have group human resource guy, the group finance guy, the strategy planning guy, and then under that particular team comes the individual CEOs and the management team of that particular company. So I'm sure in another 5 years' time, we as family members will be involved only on the strategic positioning rather than getting involved in running the business per se.
But where would you focus your, I mean, today, if you had to pick one business that you can build into the next unicorn, into the next Eastern, which one would it be? And why?
I bet a lot on the brand Sunidra because it's part of the, when we talk about housing and related opportunity, that is one industry which is going to give us a lot of opportunity. We also have Easty as a brand with us, which has got amazing export performance, but the local performance is not that great. But India has moved more towards tea business, so we feel that we will be in a position to create that sort of a business on a pan-India basis, since we have that hands-on knowledge about running distribution business in this country. So these are the two businesses which we will be focusing very clearly. And affordable housing is close to my heart. So that is where, if you are in a position to offer houses at 30 to 40 lakhs, I think that can make a lot of difference. I'm pretty sure that this one particular business also can be taken to the next level, but I'm not very sure about going out of Kerala, because the real estate scenario is pretty tricky in the country. So that's a reason why we are not thought of that.
Is there any other business, like, since you had mentioned sports in the past, and I think a couple of interviews about a year or two ago, is there some other industry that you're currently not in that you would probably jump in or step in and scale up?
So we have participated in a lot of startups. At least in the current scenario, we are working closely with around 6 organizations. So all those businesses are good to be scaled to the next level, but it is all been driven by the founders. We participate on a strategic level, and the funding and related stuff is being done, but we don't get into the normal day-to-day running of those organizations.
But you have not thought of any business that you yourself would probably build up or scale up?
See, the problem is, since we have our non-curry powder divisions all put together, is close to around 400 crore turnover. So, trying to do something new, and that too, me getting directly involved doesn't make any sense. So, or anybody from the family getting into the same scenario doesn't help us in the long run. Now, what we feel is that any industry that we are in as of now, in any of this industry, we need to have right people with adequate expertise in that particular field has to run the show. So that way, I personally doesn't like to get into any of this company and run it directly.
Okay. Just before your session, or this session, was a session on the Hungry Planet and Todd Boydman, and he was talking about how he's trying to create plant-based solutions. So in the food industry, would you have any interest within the food industry to create something that is even greater than what Eastern was?
So I have a lot of hopes on brand the Jackfruit 365. It's been driven by this person called James Joseph. James has come out with a lot of options, even making a snack, a healthier snack, because adding jackfruit flour into it, into any food, because of its fiber content, it makes it healthy. And James has got a lot of recipes which has been created. So I feel that in this particular era, where people are looking at healthier organic sort of products, Jackfruit 365 definitely can offer a lot of quality products in the market. It's not at the organization is not at ready to get into the next level. They are still trying to bootstrap the product offerings and stuff like that. I have a lot of hope on that particular brand.
But is that part of the Eastern, or it's a completely different?
We have invested in that. James is the champion. James is running the show.
So now that you've made the sale and there's the joining up of Orkla, MTR and Eastern, what is the role that you're going to play for the next 2 to 3 years?
Coming 3 years, as per the contract, I will have to run the show, or we as the family will have to run the show. And the third year is going to be the cooling off year, wherein the Orkla people will start taking control of the organization. So I personally will be busy for the coming 3 years, but eventually would be driving the group board, and I will not say advising, but suggesting good things to people who are running the show.
Okay. There's a question from the chat box that I'll into. So somebody's asked, can you give some perspective on how large businesses like Eastern are supporting startups, either for go-to-market or strategic investment? You had mentioned that you're working closely with 6 startups. I think it's a follow-up on that.
Yeah. So if you see, we run this company called Eastern Threads Limited. So in that particular industry, we have invested in a startup called ShipNext, which is into the Uber in trucking. So the reason why we invested there is because since we are in retailing industry, we have got that association with the retailers and the truck owners and stuff like that. So we thought we'll be in a position to bring these people into the platform very soon. So it has helped, and it is working good. Jackfruit 365 is a classic case. Our distribution network is helping it in a big way. So I mean, we have also put money into some of the see wherever we are putting money, there is some relationship with what we are doing in the current scenario. So otherwise, it's going to be a completely different space. We in fact have invested in a company called CloudSec. CloudSec, it's getting the second round of funding right now, and it is valued at some $30 million US. That was a completely non-related area, but somehow it clicked, and it has got into the next level. But I'm not sure whether we will be doing that sort of a investment in the future. We would like to align with those companies which actually synergizes with our activity.
Okay. So you would not create a fund or a private equity fund of your own and invest in companies which do not have a connection with your 5 or 6 lines of business today?
I would suggest our group companies to create business plan that actually attracts other funds to put money in, rather than me putting money in our thing. But if it is a solid business, nothing wrong in putting money there.
It's very difficult for Kerala-based entrepreneurs to achieve success because of, I think, though the the panchayat and the corporation elections might say that the left is back in power. But there's always a thought that there's hartals, there are a whole lot of bottlenecks which are not there in other states. But there are also a lot of advantages like literacy, talent, etc. What were your hiccups in building this brand? And if you were to start your own business, would you do it again in the state of Kerala, or would you choose a completely different destination?
No, Kerala as a destination has got a lot of positivity. Once you go to, we have factories in Tamil Nadu, we have factories in Andhra Pradesh, in Rajasthan, in Karnataka. So what I have seen is the problems here in Kerala are dealable problems. It's not it's not that serious an issue. But once you start operating in other places, me personally, we tend to lay under the radar, because if you start growing, if you start advertising, if you start creating more visibility in the market, then that attracts a lot of other issues, which in the current scenario, especially in the current scenario, we will not be in a position to deal with. So Kerala, I feel it's all the question of how we deal with the people. And I'll tell you, there are some places like Alleppey. It's culturally they are into a completely different mindset. So I will not go and put up a factory in Alleppey district. So, I mean, that might be the right answer to that.
Okay. How difficult it would be for entrepreneurs from Kerala to do an encore of something like Eastern? I mean, to build a brand, to scale it up so well, get a presence across the country, if not the world. So what would be some critical success factors that you can?
So the issue in Kerala, what I've seen is we don't have much of peer pressure. So we obviously automatically becomes, and it's obvious that we become laid back. So whereas if you are in a city like Bombay or in Delhi, every major town is arm's length with you. You're in the southern extreme of the country. So even traveling to Delhi, we might think twice. That's a major issue. But my experience says that South is the most contributing states in the country. So if you take Andhra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala, this itself can create a 2,000, 3,000 crore turnover organization, because that's the level of that's the level of population, and the consumption is at that level where you can build any sort of turnover from South. Plus, operating in South is easy. To hire people. What I have experienced is having someone in Kerala is very tough. One has to have office either in Bangalore or Chennai so that you get right people to join your organization. Bringing somebody to Cochin, Cochin is much more easier, but then to any other part of the state, it's very tough. So, if you may ask, what is the right formula for a Kerala entrepreneur, I would say that don't spread it too thin, going pan India and losing focus. Rather, focus on South, which is such a strong market.
The world, especially during the pandemic, has been talking of everything going digital. So why have a distribution system that's physical? Why not do it on the internet? Why don't you have Amazon dropping off or deliveries or drones? So what is your take on that? For a person who's built up one of the most robust distribution channels in the country, have you looked into the digital aspect of it, and what percentage does it contribute to Eastern right now?
For Eastern, any of the group company within Eastern, that percentage is very low. I will not say that it's very encouraging number, but this one has to have an omni-channel strategy in mind when you address India, because it doesn't help you out just by being only online or only offline. You have to you have to have an omni-channel strategy. Um, uh, the flow which I see as far as online is that one has to get to a level where your distribution expenses has to be in control. So the percentage of cost on distribution should, if it is in control, that's one good business one can get into. But in my experience, our distribution cost has gone up like anything, which is eating into the profitability.
Okay. In terms of, while we're talking of the digital space and in terms of the distribution thing, you would mention your brand called Eastern Trends, but it's predominantly a Kerala-based brand as of today. So do you have any intention to grow it out of, you mentioned that South it gives a huge market area for you. So is that a possibility in that brand?
Eastern Trends is already a pan-India brand. Kerala sells hardly 15% of the total turnover. So it's already a pan-India brand. And right from 97, 98 onwards, it has established markets and markets all over the country. So it's been exported also.
Export market, yes. But what would be the concentration of the business across, and how do you, I mean, you had mentioned that it's one of the brands that you might scale up also.
You're talking about Eastern Trends or Eastern Trends? Yeah, it's already a pan-India brand. It isn't do a B2B business. Ours, basically, these are all lessons in when you do diversification. These are all lessons. We got into a B2B business where we don't have any strength, but still, then since we got in, we tried and made it to a level where it is as of now in the 100 crore level. But if it was a B2C business, I think this would have gone to a level where it would have already crossed 1,000 crores.
So in future, would you look at only B2C businesses, or would you look at even B2B businesses?
Our strength is in B2C business.
So you would.
Our strength is that I would be happy doing a B2C business rather than doing a B2B business.
Is it because it offers unlocking of value much faster, or is it also because that's where you've grown up?
If I may confess, your first option is the major reason behind it.
Okay. So, if you look at in terms of brands that are built up across the world, especially food brands, there's a lot of nitty-gritties that one has to go through in terms of building a B2C brand. It's not a very easy task for most people. And to scale it up across the world is even tougher. You said that South is your cradle and the market gives, 2,000, 3,000 crores market you can build up in South itself. And probably for a Kerala entrepreneur, the Middle East offers a rich picking ground as such. But given the travails of petrol and diesel the way it is, and Gulf or the Middle East not being so attractive, would you suggest that Kerala B2C brands will have to look at markets that they've never looked at before? And if so, what would those markets be?
What I feel is investing in Middle East markets, the way in which we all did in the last 20, 25 years, may not be that advisable, because it has got a lot of volatility, and it is you are not very sure whether the Indian diaspora will stick there. So almost 60 to 70% of the sales of any Indian brand for us, almost 60-65% of our sale actually comes from the Indian diaspora, especially the Kerala diaspora. So we are spending close to 50 to 55 crores in a year there. So that sort of an investment in the future may not be. I don't think it is advisable. So if you look at food brands from Kerala, food, if you're sticking on to food per se, then a lot of Keralites are there in US, UK, Australia sort of markets, and there you have the opportunity of selling higher value added products, because cooked food, because those people are all busy, so they would like to buy products, microwave it and eat it. So we are in the last level of value creation, because we just grind or we just create blends. The further cooking has to happen, whereas people would love to have cooked food. So if someone is looking at that sort of an area, then Australia, US, UK, these sort of markets will be the right markets.
One of the questions that came up in the chat box is on an IPO, and I would like to sort of draw an analogy. The other brands that are built up from Kerala, one looks at it, Muthoot, V-Guard, your Wonderla, and a couple of other brands, probably Shobha. They've all done an IPO and grew their business in that way. Probably not going the private equity and professionalization, and still holding on to the organization and the family still running the business. Was that ever in your thoughts? And what sort of debate did you have internally to choose the path that you chose?
So see, a mistake is a mistake. I have to agree to what I've done as a mistake. The reason why I was not in a position to go with IPO on Eastern Condiments was that I did an IPO in the year 1997 with Eastern Threads Limited, where I was not in a position to, create a hugely profitable business and thereby create value for the stakeholder. So that mistake I committed. If in 1997, if I had gone with Eastern Condiments as the company that did IPO, that would have created a completely different picture for the group itself. So that was a mistake from my side. So since I made that mistake, I was not in a position to hit the market second time. I didn't have the courage to hit the market second time. Whereas people, the private equities and the strategic investors, they were interested. So I just took that route.
So on the same line, so would you look at the IPO route for any of your other organizations that you're building up? You had mentioned Sunitra Mattress as one of the brands, and Easty also as another brand that you would like to scale up and build it up. So is that a thought process?
So, 80% of my mind space is to make sure that Eastern Threads make good profit and give adequate dividend. So that is there in my mind. So if I'm able to do that, obviously others will also be able to follow their suit. But I'm sure once you get into an industry, and if you feel that it's not getting to the next level, and that either I have to bring in some other business into that particular company and then do something to create value there, or try and do something next level to make sure that it creates adequate profit. So this was always there in my mind, which was pulling me back. But given a chance, if any of the group company performs really well, and if it creates adequate profit, sustainable, I would say that I would take the word sustainable profits. If I'm sure that if it is able to create sustainable profit, nothing wrong in taking it through the IPO
route. You said you joined your business at the age of 22, and Eastern would have been running for a decade or plus at that point of time, and it's probably taken another 3 decades to build it to this scale. Given the fact that now you have corpus of money on your side, and you have a couple of brands that you want to build up, do you think that it would still take this sort of long journey to scale up, or are there methods that you've now discovered in your journey to shorten this and scale it up much faster?
What you said is absolutely spot on. because these days technology enables us in a big way. So I don't think if I have taken 30 years to build one brand, I don't think I should take more than 5 to 10 years to build another brand to that, to the level at which Eastern has already come up. So lot of advantage. Then currently the major positive which I would say is that I don't have a problem hiring a professional. Hearing about big salaries doesn't make me jittery. So I would see that particular person coming in and creating much more value to the organization rather than me trying to be penny wise pound foolish.
Okay. You had briefly mentioned about affordable housing, and that's very close to your heart. But you also mentioned that it's very difficult to take it as a pan-India business. There are a couple of real estate companies that have built pan-India, so it's Tata Trutvam, Godrej, DLF, or even Shobha, who's from Kerala. So why do you think it's so difficult for you to build a pan-India affordable housing brand?
I see the problem here is those people who are running the show. If they feel confident, I will not stop them. But real estate per se, it has got a lot of you understand what it is. It has got a lot of issues. So I don't think we are capable enough to manage that sort of an atmosphere. But if the people running the show feel confident and they take it step by step from Kerala to Karnataka or to Tamil Nadu and then to Andhra, nothing wrong in it. But this is there in back of my mind.
For every entrepreneur or for every businessman, allocation of capital is a very key aspect. Given the corpus that you're sitting on now, how do you take the decision in terms of asset allocation? Is it something, or allocation of capital? Is it something that is close to your heart, or is it something that you think it will make it a much larger success? What about the entire family's thought process on that? Your brothers, your wife, son, daughter, all of them?
Yeah, there are some banks which have enough funds, but they sanction very less loans. You can treat me in that category.
Was that a warning to the family members, or was it a warning to the general public as such?
One has to prove the merit for getting money from, and it's not just me. I have made sure that it has been handled by professionals. So whatever recommendations that is coming in, it is not just vetted by me. It is vetted by the family office. So one has to come up with meritorious proposals.
Every family business, while it goes through this phase of going from the person who started the business, the founder, in case your father, and then moving to the first, second generation and the third generation. And the generations want to professionalize their setup, but there are a lot of people who are the right-hand people of the founder. How do you balance this out? And now you're going to be in that role. I mean, you've probably built up a set of people, and probably your brother, your son, or somebody else would want to build up something different in the company, in any of the organizations. They'll also face the same thing. So how do you balance this out? And what is your advice to all the budding entrepreneurs on this?
So the other day, somebody was asking me, if something goes wrong in one organization, who will take the responsibility? I was just smiling, and I just thought that, if everything goes well, the person running the show will take the credit. If it goes bad, and if I have to pay the bank, no one will come and help me out in paying that money to the bank. So the issue here is, create a fine balance on how you are letting a professional run the organization. We have enough of good cases within the state itself. AVT Natural, where MSA was the MD and CEO of the company, they have run it. Family was not involved in that business, and it was completely driven by professionals. And it is possible. The problem here is, if you want to run your organization, then you have to be accountable. The other members of the family, if they point fingers at you, then it's same as that of being pointed towards another professional. So we have to have the mindset to take that in a very spirited way. So the thing is, letting it go is a major issue in any family organization. So once you get to a stage where you have the mindset to let it go, then that is the time where you need to bring in the right people to run the show. And even bringing in someone to run the show, I have a feeling that it has to be people with adequate exposure. And our job is to create the framework, and within the framework, the professional should be allowed to perform. And having appointed him as CEO or a general manager or a HR head, chasing him and talking to him on a daily basis on what he has done right and what he has done wrong, it doesn't take us anywhere. We need to give space for people to perform. And if you don't have that mindset, so my dad always used to say that, allowing people to make mistake is the best way to create a team. Once they make a mistake, they make one mistake, they make two mistakes, they make three mistakes, and then finally they get to a stage where decision making doesn't become a problem. Over a period of time, experience teaches them to take the right decision.
Incidentally, that question was from MSA in the
Yes,
chat box. You must be reading MSA's mind and figuring out it is he who's asking the question on professionalism. Okay. Probably the last question, since we are probably right on time, just about a minute or two more, is what would you advise to any, it could be a youngster, it could be a person starting off his entrepreneurial journey probably in middle age. What would be a couple of factors that you would say have to be aligned with or has to be there when you start your entrepreneurial journey?
So don't take it as something coming from a teacher, but then I would strongly say that 5 value systems can make a better person in you as well as a better businessman in you. The first one is to create a positive impact. The second one is to have fun in what you're doing. The third one is to create or build relationship. The fourth one is to learn on a continuous basis. And the fifth one is to be a role model. This is all taken from my dad. On each and every values, I have enough of stories to say, but I will just narrate only one story, wherein the fourth one, which I said, always keep learning. My dad, from the age of 40 till around 65, whenever he is in Adimali at home, he used to have 1 hour of English class. And it happened for around 20-25 years. I can very well say that his vocabulary was really good, but even he doesn't speak English, but then his vocabulary was really good. So that sort of effort is what builds you as a person as well as a better businessman. I think I have done justice to your question.
So one follow-up question on that. Of the 5 value systems that you, which one is your strength?
See, anything that I do, I make sure that at least I try to see that these 5 things are backed by my decision.
So thank you, Nawaz, the ever-smiling Nawaz, talking very disarmingly about the businesses that he's created, the brands that he's building up, and the future of probably some of the brands that are close to his heart. Sunidra, Easty, affordable housing, and a couple of startups that he's invested in. Great evening, and thanks a lot, Nawaz. I know you've had a long journey driving all the way to Chennai. Thanks for logging in from there and making this keynote address a really interesting one. Thank you.
Thank you, Naveen. Thank you, Nawaz, for joining us pretty late. Very insightful talk by both of you. Thank you, participants, for joining today's TiECon. We had a very interesting, insightful sessions today.